Hi teachers, it's Tim here, and in today's video we're going to unpack a topic that is super exciting and very current and relevant to a lot of teachers, and that's all about group teaching. Now, we've been talking about group teaching on the blog and podcast. I've got 2 courses in our membership about it. I've run webinars about it. We've been talking about this for probably 8 years, I'd say. But just now it seems to become more and have been becoming more and more popular again for teachers. And there's lots of great reasons why. I won't go into too much detail, but obviously there is elements of being able to increase your income. There's elements of flexibility in your schedule, and there's cool stuff that comes from teaching in groups because kids get to socialize and play together like they do in a classroom. So in today's video, we're going to unpack a few tips about how you might like to get started with group teaching if you want to explore it, and some strategies around approaches that you can take. And as always, if you are enjoying these videos, then please do subscribe to our channel if you're watching this on YouTube. And remember, I'm always happy to read your comments and questions, so please leave them below wherever you are. I'd love to read them. Okay, tip number 1, if you are interested in group teaching, is to start small. Just try it out with a small segment of your studio. So for example, I've got some teachers that I'm coaching at the moment who are transferring over to group teaching, and they're testing it by just taking 4 of their students and inviting them into a group and then running that for 1 term or 10 weeks or thereabouts. And then as that goes well, we're going to add a second group and a third group, etc. Now, of course, you can just completely change everything about your studio. And I've interviewed teachers on the podcast who have done that before and just gone end of 1 year teaching one-on-one, and then the start of the next year I'm teaching in groups. But that is a fair change to everything that goes on in your studio, including you're going to need some more instruments. You're going to need definitely to have some new lesson plans and things like that. So just dipping your toe in the water with small groups can be a great way to start. So you could also try partner lessons. So that's where instead of just having 1 student at a time, you just have 2 students at a time. Sometimes the easiest way to do that is to have a 15-minute crossover between lessons. So one student comes for 30 minutes, the second one comes for 30 minutes, but in the middle and between the lessons, they get an extra 15 minutes that they have playing duets together or doing activities together. It's a great way to build community in your studio in a really simple way, because the parents of the 2 children can meet each other. Obviously the 2 children can hang out and get to know each other. So that's really great for retention as well. And running partner lessons is a great way to sort of give students the experience of group lessons for the future if you want to expand. So if you want to eventually go to 4 or 6 or 8 students in a lesson, then starting with 2 is a really great way, both from the business side of things, but also from the student's perspective of being able to explore that as an approach and see what they think of it before you dive right in. Now, once you've got started with the smaller group sizes, you can add more lessons later on. So you could do weekly partner lessons or weekly group lessons. You could do monthly lessons. You could call them a piano party or something like that. Or you could do them once every term, every 10 weeks or 2 times a term, where on the weekends you have a 2-hour slot and you invite a group of 6 to 8 kids from your studio together to do a special 2-hour workshop. It could be a performance workshop or a creativity workshop. There are lots of different ideas of what you could do. You could also build that up into a summer camp program, special events, one-off for maybe a week. You could even do 2 days. You could even do a 1-day summer camp. I mean, again, start small and simple, try things out and get confident before you go all out. Now, my tip number 2 is all about goals. Make sure you've got a goal for your lessons and for your students. Now, why is it that you want to incorporate group lessons in your studio, and what do you need to get them up and running? These are fundamental questions that you should be answering before you actually go all in. And then how do you envisage them running? Can you visualize what's actually going to happen? How are you going to group the students? Are they by siblings, or are they by levels, or by age, or by musical interests? And how big are they going to be? How often they're going to be run? All of these are the questions that you need to think about before you do dive in. I guess it's similar to your one-on-one lessons. You know, what do you want the student to get out of the one-on-one lessons? How's that going to be different to the group lessons? Having that focus will really set up the tone and the structure around your group lessons. For example, if one of your big goals of having group is that socialization factor and the ability for students to play together out loud in an ensemble, then you're going to structure your group lessons in a way that there's lots of out loud playing. Students aren't going to have headphones on very much. It's going to be more like a classroom in a school with students performing and practicing things together and out loud and creating music together. And that's a fantastic outcome of group lessons. It's one of the best things about group lessons, in fact. But it doesn't always have to be that way, and you can mix things up a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about headphones in a minute. Okay, my next tip is to make sure you've got a plan. And I recommend always, and I did this as a classroom teacher for 20 years, always have more things on your plan to do than you'll ever fit in a lesson, just in case you need to quickly change up things because they haven't worked as you expected or things went faster than expected. Always have a plan, but always have more than you think you'll need. So one idea around planning is to just simply divide your lesson into 4 parts. And the 4 parts can be a simple review, doing some theory, having a musical game of some sort, and then working on your repertoire or your method book, depending on what the students are actually doing. Now, depending on the goal, which we set in tip number 3, you may want to structure your lessons differently. This is just one idea. Now, for the theory aspect of your lesson, if you do want to try that, then again, keep it practical. The same with games. Get as many kids involved as you possibly can. Get students rotating around the instruments or doing a Kahoot together, which is like an online quiz. Whatever it is, make sure that the way that you reinforce elements of music in the lesson with the group is practical and involves the whole group as much as possible. And look, you don't have to stick to that order as well. Mix things up. It's always great for students to be a little bit unsure maybe of what's going to be happening during the lesson while still creating some sense of routine. All right, now tip number 4, don't use headphones all the time. I mentioned headphones a little bit earlier. There's 2 schools of thought with group teaching. One is you can have group lessons where all the students have headphones on 99% of the time or 90% of the time. And there's the other alternative where students have headphones on maybe 10% of the time. Now, these are 2 perfectly legitimate models, but they will have very different outcomes and they will feel very different to you as a teacher. The one where students have headphones on all the time is really more like having however many students, let's say you've got 4 students, having individual lessons just all in one room at one time. So you'll be moving between them and you'll be trying to catch up as much as you can and help them, and then moving on to the next one privately and the next one privately. So that's one model. The other one is where headphones are only maybe 10% of the time, maybe just to do a little bit of touching up before the main bulk of the lesson, which is all playing out loud, playing together, learning together. Now, my preference is for the second one, but there can be a mix. Of course, headphones are really, really useful if students need a little bit of time to catch up on something or practice something, or you explain something to them, just like in a maths class, let's say, explain how to do the problem, and then set the class doing that problem in their own time, and then coming back together as a group to actually explore that together. That can work really, really well. But as I say, I'd keep the headphones to a minimum as much as you can if you want to have real success with the group structure, particularly when you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 students, and you want to encourage that sense of rhythmic stability, playing together, accompanying each other, and that social interaction as well. Now, just remember too, when you're playing out loud, if let's say you've got a room full of pianos and you've got 4 students, digital pianos don't have to always sound like pianos. You can make them sound like anything. And so there's great music available out there. We've talked about this before on podcasts and things, where you can have students change the sound of their digital instrument to make an orchestra between the 4 instruments or the 8 students, whatever it is. So some people are playing bass lines, and some are playing horns, and some are playing violins, and there's a piano there as well perhaps, or there's vocal sounds, whatever it is. You can really create a fantastic sense of ensemble. You can even have students playing drums on piano. I mean, that's still useful. Being able to keep a beat and a steady rhythm is a really useful skill. So keep in mind that idea that, you know, the sound when you play out loud can be really full and rich depending on the instruments that you choose to use coming out of the pianos. My last tip is to involve parents in the group lesson. What tends to happen is if students know that the parents are all going to be coming in for the last 5 or 10 minutes, you can create some sense of a bit of an event, maybe a little mini recital or a section of the lesson where the child can teach their parent something really, really simple. That, of course, also helps the parent feel more involved. They're going to understand more about what's expected of them. You as a teacher can explain the practice and homework, I guess, suggestions at the end of the lesson so parents can hear that as well. And students can really up their game because at the end of class, if they're going to impress a parent or grandparent or whoever's picking them up, then that can be a little motivation for a little bit of extra work. And you know what? It's not bad for the parents to see you at work as well and see what you're doing, see how hard you work with the students that you're with. So there's lots of great reasons to invite parents into at least part of a group lesson. Well, that's it for my quick tips around group teaching. Now, if you want more information about this, we actually have a demonstration lesson schedule with links to lots of activities you can do. It's over on the blog, Tips for Teaching Group Lessons. We'll put a link to it with this video. And if you would like more information, we do have 2 comprehensive online training courses in our Top Music Pro membership. One specifically about the pedagogy of group teaching and one more about the business of group teaching. We also have a number of other extra workshops. We've got expert interviews and demonstration lessons where you can watch other teachers teaching in a group setting. It's fantastic to see other teachers teaching. So if you're interested in any or all of those resources, you just need to head over to topmusicpro.com and choose our studio plan. Come and join us. You've got a world of information in there if group teaching is something that you're interested in. All right, that's it for the video today. I hope you found that really, really helpful. Let me know if you've got any questions about structure of lessons, what to do in lessons, anything like that. Leave it on any of our social media channels, comment below, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you next time.